1. David Gergen dies. Legacy of leadership and public service. 2. David Gergen remembered. Legendary presidential advisor to Reagan, Clinton, and more dies at 83. 3. David Gergen remembered. Harvard colleagues reflect on a presidential advisor. 4. David Gergen's Better Off? Question. The legacy that still shapes elections. 1. David Gergen dies. Legacy of leadership and public service. In a profound loss for the realm of American politics, David Gergen, a monumental figure and the visionary founder of the Kennedy School Center for Public Leadership, has passed away. On July 11, 2025, we learned of the death of David Gergen at the age of 83. Gergen was not just a trusted advisor to 4 U.S. presidents. He was instrumental in revolutionizing leadership education at Harvard Kennedy School. His career spanned over 4 decades, during which he served as a dedicated public servant and later became a prominent political commentator for CNN. His tenure in the White House saw him working under both Republican and Democratic administrations, earning him respect across the political spectrum. After his time in Washington, he co-founded the Kennedy School Center for Public Leadership, where he dedicated more than 20 years to nurturing the next generation of public leaders. Jeremy Weinstein, the dean of the Kennedy School, and Don K. Price, professor of public policy, expressed, "We at the Kennedy School count David among our greatest leaders. A man of courage and commitment who inspired generations of students to go out and change the world for the better." Gergen's academic journey began at Yale University, followed by Harvard Law School. He served in the U.S. Navy during the 1960s and took his first steps into the political arena in 1971 as a speechwriting assistant for Republican President Richard Nixon. His career progressed as he held senior communications roles for Presidents Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan, and later for Democrat Bill Clinton. Gergen was renowned for his remarkable ability to navigate partisan divides with wisdom and grace, providing a steady voice during numerous crises. Reflecting on Gergen's impact, Hannah Riley Bowles, a senior lecturer in public policy and management and former co-director of the Center for Public Leadership, remarked, "David devoted decades of his life to serving those who sought to serve, mentoring, teaching, and befriending students and faculty alike. He was a principled leader of unmatched character, integrity, and kindness, who chose to see goodness in every person he met." In 1999, Gergen joined Harvard Kennedy School as a professor of public service and became the founding director of the Center for Public Leadership. Under his leadership, the center evolved into a vital hub for the study and practice of principled and effective leadership. Anthony Fox, the current director of the center, noted, "It was his vision of public service that drove the creation of CPL and programs that have created pathways to leadership for over 1,000 students. CPL will continue to live into David's legacy of mentorship as we enable and empower future generations of leaders." Gergen retired in 2023 but remained a professor of public service emeritus. His legacy continues through the David Gergen Summer Fellowship Program, launched in the summer of 2024, which supports students in undertaking 10-week summer internships in public service or the nonprofit sector. Gergen emphasized the importance of experience, stating, "There's no substitute for what you learn from experience. There's a tendency to believe that your time at university stops when you graduate. We're hopeful to create communities where people want to work together for a lifetime." His approach to teaching was rooted in the belief that leadership is not solely about personal achievements, but also about recognizing and nurturing emerging talent. Rai Barkat, a former student and mentee, shared, "I'm among the lucky ones to have had David Gergen as a teacher. When I graduated from Harvard Kennedy School in 2009, he became a mentor. Years later, when I started a nonprofit, he became a co-founder. Now he is a cherished friend." Wendy R. Sherman, a former co-director of the center who later served as U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, remarked, "When I was asked to be the next leader of the Center for Public Leadership, I always said I was succeeding but not replacing David Gergen because he is irreplaceable. David Gergen was the very definition of public leadership. In such a perilous time for our democracy, his example and inspiration will be sorely missed." Gergen was also a prolific writer and media commentator, serving as a senior political analyst for CNN and contributing to various publications, including U.S. News and World Report. He authored 2 best-selling books, Eyewitness to Power: The Essence of Leadership as Seen Through the Eyes of 4 Presidents, published in 2000, and Hearts Touched with Fire: How Great Leaders Are Made, released in 2022, where he shared insights on leadership. In his book, Gergen wrote, "Our greatest leaders have emerged from both good times and more often challenging ones. The very finest among them make the difficult calls that can ultimately alter the course of history." Former HKS Dean Douglas Elmendorf praised Gergen's contributions, stating, "David brought public leadership to the center of our mission, and he was creative and determined in building our capacity to study and teach leadership. We who teach, study, and work here are in his debt. David was a generous colleague and friend to me, and I was grateful for his advice and support. I will miss him very much." Gergen was born in Durham, North Carolina, in 1942. He is survived by his wife and Elizabeth Gergen, whom he married in 1967, and their two children, Christopher, the CEO of the Regenerative Organic Alliance, and Catherine, a doctor in Boston, along with 5 grandchildren. And shared, David's deep commitment to public service and leadership found a perfect home at the Center for Public Leadership. The opportunity to work with next-generation changemakers committed to making a difference was a constant source of inspiration and energy, and he was deeply grateful for the network of friends and supporters who helped CPL thrive. We are so grateful to the Harvard community for helping create this lasting legacy. Before his tenure at Harvard, Gergen taught at Duke University for several years and received over 24 honorary degrees. Lawrence Bacow, a professor of public policy and former president of Harvard, reflected on Gergen's unique ability to provide guidance, saying, "He had an extraordinary gift for giving advice without appearing to do so, framing issues in ways that crystallized the consequences of various actions. After speaking with him, you knew what to do and often how to do it very well." Former HKS Dean David Ellwood remembered Gergen as an amazing listener with a generous spirit, a love of history, astonishing experience, and a deep commitment to democracy and public service. It is no wonder that he was perhaps the keenest observer of politics of his generation, and a trusted advisor to students, presidents, colleagues, and even deans. As we reflect on David Gergen's remarkable life and contributions, we are left to ponder. What does it mean to be a true leader in today's complex political landscape? How can we carry forward his legacy of mentorship and public service? Let us honor his memory by engaging in these vital discussions. 2. David Gergen remembered. Legendary presidential advisor to Reagan, Clinton, and more dies at 83. America just lost a political bridge builder, and his legacy reveals what's missing in politics today. David Gergen, the rare Washington insider who counseled both Republican and Democratic presidents across 5 turbulent decades, died Friday at 83, leaving behind a masterclass in leadership that feels startlingly relevant in our divided era. But here's what most headlines overlook. This man didn't just serve power, he studied it, distilled it, and challenged us to demand better from those who wield it. Gergen's career reads like a roadmap through modern American history. After Navy service, he entered the political arena as a Nixon speechwriter in 1971, a role that ballooned into advising 4 presidents, Nixon, Ford, Reagan, Clinton, across radically different administrations. His most iconic moment came crafting Reagan's devastating 1980 debate question, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" A rhetorical grenade that crystallized national frustration over inflation and the Iran hostage crisis. The lesson? Sometimes you strike gold when panning in the river of public sentiment, Gergen later mused, a humble analogy for what became a political knockout punch. Now here's the controversial part. In an age where switching parties often ends careers, Gergen's bipartisan journey, Republican administrations followed by Clinton's Democratic White House, would likely be vilified today. Yet former colleagues like Al Gore praised his sound judgment and devotion to doing good, while Harvard's Kennedy School, where Gergen founded the Center for Public Leadership, credits him with serving those who sought to serve. Between government roles, Gergen mastered media, editing at U.S. News, analyzing news on PBS and CNN, giving him rare cross-sector perspective. His 2000 memoir Eyewitness to Power identified 7 leadership pillars we desperately need now, from moral purpose and persuasion skills to assembling wise advisors. 2 years later, Hearts Touched with Fire argued that true leaders emerge not from comfort, but crisis, making difficult calls that alter history's course. But this is where it gets personal. Months before his death, as dementia set in, Gergen told his daughter, "Politics is a pendulum. We're being tested, but Americans can endure any crisis if they take responsibility." His final Boston Globe column, co-written as his mind faded, pleaded for faith and leadership despite today's period of fear. So here's the question we're left with: can Gergen's vision of collaborative, values-driven leadership survive in an era of hyperpartisanship? Or does his passing mark the end of an age where opposing sides could share advisors and basic truths? The man who helped shape Reagan's rise and Clinton's comeback left us with one final challenge. Leadership isn't about red or blue. It's about stewarding a nation through its darkest hours. What do you think? Is that idealistic vision still possible? Share your thoughts below, and let's discuss whether bridge builders like Gergen are relics or exactly what we need more of. 3. David Gergen remembered. Harvard colleagues reflect on a presidential advisor. David Gergen was one of those rare individuals whose impact on American political life was both profound and inspiring, and his legacy at Harvard left a deep impression on many who knew him. We truly need more people like David Gergen in the world, reflected Stratton, a 70-year-old former chief regional attorney in the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. He recalled this sentiment vividly from his time as a student in Gergen's classroom, where the lessons went far beyond politics into the realm of leadership and civility. Gergen's career was nothing short of extraordinary. He served as a political advisor to 4 U.S. presidents and became a familiar figure on PBS, offering political analysis that many Americans trusted. Born in Durham, North Carolina, he earned a reputation for helping to temper the hardline rhetoric of Ronald Reagan's staunchest aides, enabling them to connect more effectively with a broader and more diverse electorate. This ability to bridge divides was among Gergen's most notable strengths. Stratton shared in a phone interview that one of the greatest takeaways from Gergen was his skill in inclusivity, knowing how to bring people together from across the political spectrum. David taught us to engage in disagreement without becoming disagreeable, he emphasized. This philosophy is especially relevant today, given the heightened political polarization many grapple with. During Stratton's Kennedy School Fellowship in 2001, he experienced firsthand how Gergen captivated students from various backgrounds. Gathered in a Cambridge classroom, they absorbed Gergen's insights on leadership drawn from his unprecedented experiences advising Presidents Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Clinton, 4 men with dramatically different styles and political ideologies. Gergen's teachings focused on the importance of understanding these differences while finding common ground. Cornell William Brooks, a professor at the Kennedy School specializing in public leadership and social justice, also praised Gergen's role not just as a seasoned Washington insider but as a dedicated mentor. Having known Gergen since 2017, Brooks highlighted Gergen's extraordinary commitment to supporting students worldwide through extensive fundraising efforts for scholarships and fellowships. More than that, Gergen invited Brooks to guest lecture in his classes, an opportunity that inspired Brooks to commit wholeheartedly to integrating social justice themes into his own teaching. David had an extraordinary talent for empowering others, Brooks explained. He conveyed a genuine belief in people's capacities to wield power responsibly and to make a positive impact on society. Bill George, a Harvard Business School professor and close personal friend of Gergen, shared a heartfelt tribute on X, formerly Twitter, describing a friendship that spanned teaching, collaboration, and personal connection. "We taught together, traveled together, and our spouses formed bonds as well," George wrote. "But above all, we truly cared for one another." In his emotional post, George called Gergen a giant who has fallen, lamenting the void left by his passing. David was not only a remarkable leader but also a dear friend to Penny and me, as well as to countless others he touched and guided. When he took his last breath, he left an enormous hole in our hearts. Similarly, Lawrence Summers, former U.S. Treasury Secretary and Harvard University president, expressed on X how Gergen embodied honor within the often criticized circle of Washington insiders. "David showed through how he lived that being a Washington insider can be honorable," Summers wrote. "Wise, generous, loyal David was always there during my toughest times. I will miss him deeply." John Coleman, a Kennedy School graduate who worked alongside Gergen at the Center for Public Leadership, also honored him on social media. "With his stature, he could have chosen any path, but he chose us. He chose to write, teach, and pour his heart into young people, even when he had no obligation to do so. He did it simply because he loved people." Stratton, now residing in Excelsior Springs, Missouri, remembers Gergen's enduring optimism about American politics and his unique ability to inspire young students pursuing careers in public service. Students from all over the country came to learn from this Washington sage, who often reminded us that government, at its best, serves the people, Stratton recounted. Phrases like "government is good for the people" echoed in those classrooms, instilling a sense of hope. What I will never forget is the aura he carried. He radiated hope, Stratton reflected. In today's divisive and often vengeful political landscape, I worry that kind of hope may be fading. But it's something we desperately need to reclaim. And this is the part most people miss. Gergen's legacy is not simply about political strategy or advising presidents, it's about fostering a culture of respectful dialogue and optimism in governance, even when times are tough. Could we be missing an opportunity by overlooking the value of his approach in today's polarized environment? What do you think? Are leaders like David Gergen a thing of the past, or a blueprint for the future? For further insights, you can reach Camille Bugyong at camille.bugyong@globe.com and Claire Thornton at claire.thornton@globe.com. Follow Claire on X at Claire_Thornto. 4. David Gergen's Better Off? Question. The legacy that still shapes elections. Are you better off? David Gergen's famous question still shapes elections. This enduring inquiry, once posed by Ronald Reagan during a 1980 presidential debate against Jimmy Carter, has become a cornerstone of political strategy, despite its simplicity. As Donald Trump asked a crowd in North Carolina, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" on his final campaign day, the question echoed through history, proving its timeless relevance. The phrase, which Reagan used to secure victory, has since been adapted by countless politicians to gauge public sentiment and influence voter behavior. The question's power lies in its vagueness and its ability to tap into voters' subjective experiences. When President Franklin D. Roosevelt asked Americans in 1934, "Are you better off than you were last year?" during his fireside chats, the answer was yes. A stark contrast to the typical midterms loss that often accompany presidential transitions. Today, as the U.S. economy improves under President Joe Biden, the question remains a tool for persuasion, though its effectiveness varies depending on the political landscape. The debate over the question's efficacy is as old as the presidency itself. While some argue it's a blunt instrument that oversimplifies complex issues, others see it as a powerful way to connect with voters. For instance, Trump's 2024 campaign leveraged the question to criticize Biden's handling of the pandemic and unemployment, while Biden himself used it to frame his policies as necessary reforms. The question's success hinges on how well it aligns with voters' immediate concerns, whether they're economic, social, or personal. Gergen, a legendary political strategist who advised 4 U.S. presidents, once said, "The best conceptualizer of communication strategy we have during Reagan's administration." His insights helped shape the question's evolution, from its initial use in 1980 to its modern iterations. Even as the political climate shifts, the question remains a touchstone for leaders seeking to rally support. But here's where it gets controversial. Does the "Are you better off?" question still resonate in today's polarized environment? Some argue it's too simplistic, reducing complex issues to a single rhetorical question. Others believe it's a necessary tool for politicians to gauge public opinion, even if it doesn't always lead to concrete policy changes. As the U.S. continues to navigate economic challenges and political divisions, the question will likely remain a topic of discussion, whether as a rallying cry or a cautionary tale.